Music has long served as a canvas for grand displays of passion, rebellion, and uninhibited expression. From the earliest days of rock and roll through the flamboyance of the 1970s and 1980s and into modern pop and hip-hop eras, certain figures have drawn widespread fascination with their overtly sexual antics, provocative personas, and colorful escapades. Their boldness isn't always just about shock value, it can also be a celebration of bodily autonomy, a way of challenging societal norms, or a demonstration of personal freedom. These individuals have redefined boundaries, inspired legions of fans, and left tabloids salivating for every rumor and whispered confession. Some, through elaborate stage performances and boundary-pushing music videos, have built entire empires on scandal and sexuality. Others have created legends around themselves through unconventional lifestyles and outrageous relationships that define rock star behavior. The line between myth and reality can blur, yet the stories that swirl around them remain potent. Their legacy stands as a testament to music's ability to enshrine cultural taboos, rework them, and sometimes even shatter them altogether. Far from being tame, these figures have transformed what it means to be sexy or shocking, each one adding a unique chapter to the wild and often scandalous story of music history. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. Madonna gained her reputation in the 1980s by bending religious imagery and brazenly tackling themes of desire. Critics and fans alike first encountered her unapologetic style in songs like a Virgin and the highly controversial Like a Prayer, the latter of which merged spirituality and eroticism in a church setting. Her boundary-breaking concert tours featured provocative costumes and stage routines that sparked mass outrage, prompting religious groups to accuse her of blasphemy. Reinventing herself countless times, she has embraced the label of sexual provocateur, even releasing a coffee table book called Sex that featured graphic photographs and fantasies. As she entered her 40s and 50s, Madonna continued pushing boundaries with music videos such as Erotica, as well as her public romances with younger partners. The sense that she is forever testing society's limits on age, sexuality, and performance has kept her relevant through multiple generations. Few artists have wielded sexuality as deliberately or as effectively as this pop icon. Every shift in her persona challenges cultural taboos around female sexual empowerment, and each new era is a reminder that she refuses to be boxed in by conventional ideas of propriety. Prince personified a level of sensuality that permeated every aspect of his life, from the iconic ruffled outfits to the lyrics bursting with desire. Standing at just over 5 feet tall, he wielded a stage presence that seemed larger than life, mixing a delicate masculinity with a flamboyant style. His music, often blending rock, funk, and R&B, explored lust and emotional connection in ways that were explicit yet poetic. Classic albums like 1999 and Purple Rain revealed someone unafraid to bare his deepest thoughts on intimacy, often causing moral guardians to clutch their pearls. Songs such as Darling Nikki famously led to the formation of the Parents Music Resource Center, illustrating how his raw lyrics jolted mainstream America. His live shows were equally notorious, featuring suggestive dances and a palpable erotic charge. Even the symbol he adopted, an androgynous mix of male and female icons, signaled his desire to blur lines. Prince's approach to sexuality was all-encompassing, uniting style, sound, and persona into a single mesmerizing package that challenged social norms. His confidence in his fluid identity, combined with musical genius, forged a legacy still studied and celebrated for its sensual originality. Mick Jagger became synonymous with rock star promiscuity as soon as the Rolling Stones shot to global fame in the 1960s. With his serpentine dance moves and a scathing, rebellious swagger, he exuded sexual energy from the stage. Fans and journalists fixated on his alleged affairs with everyone from supermodels to fellow rock royalty. The press had a field day chronicling his relationships, especially with Marianne Faithfull, and rumors persisted about wild parties and dalliances on tour. The provocative anthem, "I Can't Get No Satisfaction," signaled the band's willingness to challenge conservative norms around pleasure and sexual frustration. Jagger's lips and strut became iconic, signifying an era in which rock singers were revered as gods of lust and youthful rebellion. As the decades rolled on, he showed no sign of slowing down, fathering children with multiple partners and continuing to prowl stages well into his 70s. The stories that follow him reflect rock and roll's glorification of excess and underscore Jagger's place as a figure who took advantage of every indulgence the music scene offered. Robert Plant epitomized the concept of the hard-partying, larger-than-life frontman during his tenure with Led Zeppelin. Known for his cascading golden curls and an otherworldly voice that soared through tracks like Whole Lotta Love, he quickly attracted myths about a frenzied, sexually charged lifestyle on the road. The band's tours were legendary for debauchery, earning them a fearsome reputation in rock folklore. Plant's onstage persona, shirt unbuttoned to his navel, microphone stand clutched tight as he unleashed primal screams, served as a potent symbol of raw desire. Rumors abounded of groupies lining up outside hotel rooms, eager for a moment of rock star intimacy. Though many tales were likely exaggerated, they fueled the group's mystique. Plant's dynamic presence contributed to Led Zeppelin's image of dangerous, unbridled excess, and decades later he remained identified with an era in which the boundaries of sex, drugs, and rock and roll seemed to vanish. That era's blend of fantasy and reality clung to Plant, ensuring he remained a fixture in discussions about the wilder side of music stardom. Jim Morrison presented himself as a shamanic poet, enthralled by the mysteries of ecstasy, death, and everything in between. His short life was crammed with legendary moments on stage, including an infamous Miami incident in which he was accused of exposing himself to the audience. Whether or not that actually happened, the rumor instantly propelled his reputation as an erotic troublemaker. Morrison's lyrics with The Doors, from Light My Fire to Hello I Love You, carried an unrepentant sensual charge. He engaged in public drunkenness, chaotic relationships, and bizarre antics that appeared to intensify his aura as the Lizard King. He was drawn to the hedonistic corners of existence, his approach to sex and liberation fueling his poetry and stage performances alike. Morrison's ability to merge the erotic and the spiritual gave his performances a cult-like magnetism that continues to fascinate new generations. Even in death, his image looms large as a figure who embraced chaos, tested moral limits, and indulged in every desire he could conjure. Freddie Mercury brought an electrifying sensuality to the forefront of Queen's performances, blurring the line between vaudeville showman and rock legend. His commanding presence, complete with a powerful voice capable of shifting from soft croons to operatic highs, became a staple of the 1970s and 1980s. Mercury reveled in flamboyance, tight outfits, a half mic stand used almost like a prop in a cabaret, and often teased at dualities between masculine and feminine. At a time when the rock scene still carried strong heteronormative expectations, Mercury ventured into terrain that normalized fluid expressions of desire and self-presentation. His parties in Munich and other cities were rumored to be extravagant affairs that embodied a spirit of lavish excess. Stories of champagne pools, costumed revelers, and boundary-pushing entertainment added to his legend. In his personal life, he navigated a complex identity, openly acknowledging relationships with both men and women, yet maintaining a certain mystique. This openness, combined with his theatrical stage antics, made him a revolutionary figure who redefined the possibilities of performance and personal freedom. Mercury's magnetism lay in his willingness to go bigger, to be more dynamic, and to find pleasure in the grandiose spectacle of it all. David Bowie was an ever-evolving chameleon whose explorations of sexuality and gender identity captured the imagination of fans and critics alike. From the moment he arrived as Ziggy Stardust, clad in glitter and sporting a shock of bright red hair, he made it clear that established notions of identity were up for grabs. His early 1970s persona was steeped in theatricality, openly playing with androgyny and fluid sexual references that unsettled the era's norms. Publicly identifying as bisexual at a time when few celebrities dared do so, Bowie ushered in a wave of artistic liberation for those feeling constrained by traditional gender roles. Albums like The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and The Spiders from Mars and Aladdin Sane included lyrical content and stage performances that blurred the lines between sex, sci-fi fantasy, and rock. His interviews ranged from explicit references to experiments in bed to cryptic hints of deeper appetites. Over the decades, Bowie reinvented himself time and again, moving through the thin white duke persona and finally into a more reserved but never less intriguing figure. He never lost that subversive streak that connected his persona to the taboo, always suggesting there was more beyond the surface. A labyrinth of alluring possibilities that made him a cultural icon for sexual and artistic freedom. Marvin Gaye earned a reputation as one of the smoothest voices in soul and R&B, with songs that simmered with passion. Albums like Let's Get It On and I Want You were seductive anthems that explicitly invited listeners into an intimate, sensual space. Gaye's background included gospel influences, but his sultry tone and lush arrangements placed adult desire at the center. He approached sexuality with a blend of reverence and rawness, using sophisticated grooves to underscore lyrics about longing and union. While performing, he exhibited a charismatic and enticing energy that showcased both spiritual undertones and a vulnerability to pleasure. This duality caused controversy among those who felt his music should remain strictly spiritual or romantic. Yet Gaye insisted on portraying love and sexuality as intertwined and transcendent, especially in a cultural moment when Black artists faced heightened scrutiny. His personal life, marred by tumultuous relationships and complex family dynamics, further enhanced the mythology around his music as an outlet for personal struggle and carnal yearning. Even decades after his tragic death, the romantic heat of his songs continues to make them staples on playlists designed for intimate encounters. George Michael's trajectory from fresh-faced teen idol and Wham to solo icon featured a transition steeped in sensual undertones. Early hits like Careless Whisper hinted at deeper passions lurking below the pop surface, but it was his solo work, particularly Faith and I Want Your Sex, that catalyzed both widespread acclaim and condemnation. The latter track was banned on certain radio stations, and its accompanying music video stirred debates about explicit content on television. Media scrutiny of his personal life exploded when he was arrested in a public restroom in the late 1990s, thrusting him into an awkward spotlight. Rather than retreat, Michael tackled the incident head-on with the single Outside, complete with a cheeky, irreverent music video mocking the moral panic. He exposed the hypocrisy within a society that consumed sexual content but also rushed to shame public figures. By refusing to hide his orientation or apologize for his desires, he carved a path for artists who recognized the personal and political stakes in owning one's sexuality. The bravado and vulnerability he displayed, both on stage and off, cemented his status as an artist who wasn't afraid to push boundaries in pursuit of honest self-expression. Grace Jones merged fashion, music, and raw sexuality in a way that obliterated conventional categories. Striking a fierce androgynous look, she often performed in powerfully structured outfits that evoked dominatrix imagery, thereby flipping the script on typical portrayals of female sexuality. Songs like Pull Up to the Bumper used innuendo with little subtlety. Though her avant-garde approach to visuals kept one foot in the art world, nightclubs in New York City, particularly the legendary Studio 54, became her stage for provocative performances that blurred the line between concert and erotic spectacle. Rumors circulated about outlandish parties and unapologetically bold displays of desire. Jones's intense physical presence, her statuesque form, chiseled cheekbones, and fearless attitude made her a symbol of empowered sexuality, unbound by the niceties of mainstream pop. She leveraged her body as a canvas for both social commentary and radical glamour. Decades later, her influence on artists who dare to be bold, transgressive, and unafraid of the erotic remains evident. She stands as a reminder that sexuality in music can be a fierce and commanding force, not merely an object of consumption. Little Richard burst onto the scene in the mid-1950s with a style and sound that merged gospel fervor and raw rock and roll. Tracks like Tutti Frutti and Long Tall Sally barely concealed their rebellious energy, featuring frenetic piano playing and a wailing vocal style that many considered downright lewd for the time. He rocked flamboyant outfits, wore thick makeup, and played with campy mannerisms that were scandalous to a mainstream audience unaccustomed to such bold displays. Rumors circulated about hedonistic parties and backstage escapades, further fueling controversy. Despite periodically renouncing secular music to pursue religious ministry, his legacy remained inseparable from the unrestrained, almost manic sexuality that catapulted him to fame. He bridged the gap between R&B and rock, inspiring later generations to perform without fear of moral backlash. Even when he shifted back and forth between the sacred and profane, his influence on the sexual energy of rock music endured. The moans, shouts, and piano pounding defined a new level of abandon that laid the groundwork for future icons to push the envelope even further. Rick James embodied the decadent side of funk, wearing revealing outfits and singing lyrics brimming with explicit references to pleasure. With hits like Super Freak, he merged catchy melodies with raunchy undertones that invited both radio play and eyebrow raises. His concerts were notorious for extravagant theatrics, often featuring scantily clad dancers and explicit routines designed to shock. Outside the spotlight, he indulged in wild parties and drug-fueled binges that became part of his public persona. His Hollywood home was rumored to be a hub for late-night gatherings where guests allegedly engaged in all sorts of hedonistic pursuits. While these behaviors eventually led to legal troubles, they also cemented him as one of the era's unabashed sex freaks. James thrived on the interplay of funk's syncopated rhythms and the gritty realities of desire, singing about it openly rather than disguising it behind flowery metaphors. He left an indelible mark that influenced artists across genres, proving that combining swagger, funk grooves, and provocative sexuality could yield cultural staying power for decades. Lady Gaga arrived in the late 2000s with an arsenal of shocking visuals and anthems celebrating independence and free expression. Songs like Bad Romance and Love Game pulsed with steamy innuendos, while her stage outfits and music videos hit peak outrageousness by intentionally crossing lines. Her iconic meat dress at the 2010 MTV Video Music Awards remains a symbol of her willingness to tackle taboos, and she routinely used her platform to advocate for LGBTQ+ rights and open dialogue about sexuality. Extended short films like the one for Telephone showcased explicit narratives that blurred lines between art, activism, and erotica. The Born This Way Foundation, despite focusing on mental health and empowerment, still underscored an all-encompassing vision of body positivity and acceptance of all sexual identities. Gaga's approach to sex and erotic expression is deeply tied to performance art, often blending high fashion, spectacle, and racy references. She reclaims the shock factor not merely for headlines, but to highlight cultural pressures around sexuality, body image, and gender norms. Her ongoing evolution continues to push boundaries, reflecting a belief that personal freedom and creativity are intimately linked with sexual self-determination. Miley Cyrus made a dramatic leap from Disney Channel darling to provocative pop sensation virtually overnight. While her early work hinted at attempts to break from a squeaky clean image, the watershed moment occurred during her infamous 2013 MTV Video Music Awards performance with Robin Thicke. Clad in a skin-tone outfit and twerking shamelessly, Cyrus unleashed a storm of controversy that overshadowed every other aspect of the show. Subsequent music videos such as Wrecking Ball featured her nude and swinging on construction equipment, sparking debates about exploitation versus empowerment. Fans and critics questioned whether she was trying too hard to distance herself from her Hannah Montana persona, but Cyrus insisted she was simply embracing her genuine identity. Over time, she dabbled in psychedelia and sexually explicit performances, even hosting events that celebrated body acceptance and fluid sexuality, such as her collaboration with the Flaming Lips. By aligning herself with various cultural movements, including openly discussing her pansexuality, she demonstrated a nuanced perspective on sex and self-expression. Although she remains a polarizing figure, the outspokenness and unfiltered performance style continually opened conversations about young women owning their sexuality on their own terms. Rihanna built her pop empire on a foundation of edgy, sensual tracks that reflected a willingness to broach themes of desire and power play. From S&M to Pour It Up, her lyrics and accompanying visuals often involved explicit references to bedroom fantasies, domination, and lavish strip club aesthetics. Public spats with media outlets over her racy content only served to amplify her daring brand. She displayed confidence in using her body as a medium of expression, whether posing for fashion magazines in revealing outfits or sporting a rotating collection of tattoos that accentuated her rebellious aura. As her career advanced, she became synonymous with a kind of unapologetic hedonism, partying at clubs and hosting after-parties that drew top-tier celebrities. The outward expression of sex and sensuality became integrated into her business ventures as well. Her Savage X Fenty lingerie line redefined inclusivity and body positivity, highlighting the belief that sexuality can be both glamorous and accessible to all. Rihanna's mystique lies in her ability to balance the raw and polished aspects of her persona, creating a consistent brand that resonates with fans who admire her bold approach to liberation and pleasure. Kanye West might not traditionally be labeled a sex freak in the same sense as some others, but his boundary-pushing approach to music and visuals often entwines explicit sexual content. From the nude celebrities depicted in the controversial Famous video, to on-stage rants about his own appetites and fantasies, West has frequently tapped into taboo subjects. He once claimed to have a near addiction to pornography, and he referenced it unabashedly in interviews and songs. His album Yeezus contained explicit themes, especially on tracks like I'm In It, which delve into graphic territory with sexual references delivered in a jarring style. Later, with his pivot toward spiritual themes and gospel-infused music, critics and fans wondered how his once carnal performance art would intersect with his newfound religious conviction. Still, even in his more recent pursuits, occasional explicit lines surface, revealing a continued fascination with erotic expression. This duality between the sacred and the profane becomes a recurring motif in his artistry. Though not everyone appreciates the often abrasive manner in which he articulates desire, Kanye West's imprint on pop culture includes a relentless determination to confront audiences with uncomfortable truths about obsession and sexuality. Axl Rose stood at the helm of Guns N' Roses, a band that embodied Hollywood's rock sleaze throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s. Tracks like Rocket Queen contained real moans rumored to have been recorded during a sexual encounter in the studio. His relationships with various supermodels and actresses fueled gossip columns, often depicting him as a wild frontman who thrived on chaos. Fights with band members, management, and other musicians only underscored his volatile nature. Concerts became unpredictable spectacles of raw energy, sometimes marred by violence in the crowd or abrupt cancellations. Through it all, Rose's persona as a sex-fueled, rebellious outlaw stood front and center, a stance that many fans found thrilling and critics found concerning. While the band's music soared on the charts, their backstage antics solidified them as part of an era in which open hedonism, fueled by drugs and sexual promiscuity, was worn like a badge of honor. Even as he receded from the public eye in later years, stories of his backstage demands and rumored after-parties lingered, sustaining the legend of a man who, at his peak, reveled in the role of an unbridled rock god. Courtney Love rose to prominence as the lead singer of Hole, and soon became as famous for her raw sexuality as for her explosive performances. She wore torn baby doll dresses, smeared lipstick, and a confrontational swagger, flipping cultural expectations of femininity on their head. Her marriage to Kurt Cobain merged two volatile personalities, and tales of their relationship bristled with references to drug use and destructive intimacy. Critics scrutinized her every move, suggesting she leveraged her sexuality to gain attention, but Love insisted on controlling her own narrative. The 1990s alternative scene revered her for songs that candidly addressed body image, abuse, and female rage, often with a visceral honesty that shocked mainstream listeners. While she sometimes courted controversy through public feuds or revealing social media posts, she consistently turned the table on those who sought to degrade her. Love's story is complicated by tragedy and scandal, but her assertion of sexual power and willingness to shatter taboos endures as a hallmark of her career. She remains an emblem of feminist defiance, whether or not her methods suit mainstream tastes. Elvis Presley was dubbed the king of rock and roll, but he also earned a reputation as a scandalous figure for his suggestive hip movements and bedroom eyes. In the conservative 1950s, his televised appearances were so controversial that networks sometimes filmed him only from the waist up. Teenagers adored his magnetic appeal, and parents feared the spell he cast on impressionable youth. Offstage, rumors abounded about the women he entertained, although his entourage and handlers often tried to keep a lid on any real scandal. Movies and promotional materials played up his sex symbol image to an unprecedented degree, ensuring that his gyrations stayed front and center in cultural discourse. Critics derided his music as devilish, thanks partly to the overt physicality he showed on stage. In the broader arc of music history, Elvis set a precedent that performance could and should be as erotic as the musician desired. This emphasis on physical expression paved the way for later icons who would push boundaries far more aggressively. His legacy remains synonymous with the transformative power of sexual charisma in popular entertainment. Cher commanded attention for decades with outfits that accentuated her figure, often sporting bare midriffs and dramatic cutouts that left little to the imagination. She gained popularity as part of the duo Sonny and Cher, but she truly hit her stride as a solo artist with an image that was unapologetically sultry. The 1989 If I Could Turn Back Time music video, shot on the USS Missouri, featured the singer in a sheer bodysuit and fishnets, scandalizing conservative viewers who felt it crossed a decency line. Yet Cher embraced controversy, continuing to flaunt revealing costumes well into her later years, proving that age need not curb one's sexuality. Offstage, her relationships drew tabloid attention, particularly after her divorce from Sonny Bono, but Cher leveraged her media coverage to cultivate a persona of resilience and eternal glamour. She infused her live shows with theatrical flair and grown-up allure, bringing erotic elements to mainstream variety entertainment. By challenging ageism and flaunting her body in a manner that subverted cultural expectations, Cher solidified her place among pop's most enduring sex symbols. Cardi B rocketed from reality TV personality to chart-topping hip-hop star with a brand built on unfiltered sexual braggadocio. Her breakthrough single, Bodak Yellow, introduced a relentless confidence, and subsequent releases like WAP set social media alight with debates over profanity and explicit imagery in female rap. The track's music video, co-starring Megan Thee Stallion, turned heads by featuring scantily clad dancing tigers and cameo appearances that capitalized on shock value. Rather than apologize, Cardi B celebrated the track's success, highlighting the hypocrisy of male-dominated genres that had long profited from explicit sexual content. She openly discusses her past as a stripper, framing it as an empowering period that allowed her autonomy and financial freedom. By flaunting her body and her sexuality in ways that might have once been relegated to the fringes of hip-hop, she rewrote the rules for women in the industry. Her candidness about cosmetic surgery, motherhood, and sexual preferences continues to spark both criticism and acclaim. In staking her claim as a sexual being without shame, Cardi B reflects a cultural shift toward recognizing women as agents of their own desire, rather than mere objects of male fantasy. Iggy Pop heralded the arrival of punk and its nihilistic energy by thrusting raw physicality in the face of unsuspecting audiences. Early Stooges shows often featured him shirtless, smeared with peanut butter, cutting himself on stage, or diving recklessly into crowds. While his actions were not always overtly sexual, the unfiltered primal energy had a potent erotic undercurrent. Even his collaborations with David Bowie contained an air of danger, suggesting the pair delved into every corner of excess Berlin had to offer in the 1970s. Iggy flaunted a wiry physique and a madman's grin, howling lyrics that spoke to alienation and carnal release. His freewheeling approach to performance included on-stage grinding, simulated sex acts, and a sense that he thrived on shocking an audience out of complacency. Off-stage, his reputation for indulgence was legendary, encompassing drug binges and encounters that bordered on the surreal. While some regarded him as self-destructive, others saw a figure embodying the raw drive of rock at its most visceral. Over time, he remained a muse for younger generations, proving that raw sexuality need not be sanitized for mass consumption, so long as it remains an authentic outpouring of spirit. Lenny Kravitz built a career on merging classic rock vibes with a modern twist, and his image often celebrated a smoldering bohemian sexuality. Songs like "Are You Gonna Go My Way" and "Fly Away" exuded rock power, yet his music videos and live performances featured plenty of flirtation. Known for unbuttoned shirts, tight leather pants, and a rock star's carefree swagger, Kravitz's style hinted at a sensual sophistication. A notorious wardrobe malfunction during one concert revealed more than he intended, but rather than recoil in embarrassment, he played it off as part of life on the edge. Off stage, his relationships with actresses and models, including a high-profile engagement to Nicole Kidman, added to the mystique around him. He never shied away from discussing topics of lust, spirituality, and personal freedom in interviews, framing sex as a universal energy source that connects people. His emphasis on sensuality fused with a laid-back vibe, contrasting the more aggressive stances of other rock personalities. This combination of cosmic spirituality and earthy eroticism has made him a continual reference point for fans seeking a rock star unafraid to radiate passion at every turn. Janet Jackson forged a path distinct from her famous family members, evolving from a wholesome teen actress to an R&B powerhouse whose songs and visuals dripped with erotic confidence. The Control album era offered a taste of her independence, but Rhythm Nation, and especially Janet, propelled her into explicit territory. Music videos for tracks like If featured futuristic club scenes with cutting-edge choreography, melding martial arts imagery and raw desire. Her live tours became showcases of sexual liberation, including the moment she plucked audience members on stage for bondage-themed dances. The wardrobe malfunction incident at the 2004 Super Bowl with Justin Timberlake launched a media frenzy that overshadowed the rest of her achievements. Even so, she refused to retreat, continuing to present her body and sexuality as integral parts of her artistry. Tracks like Anytime, Anyplace, and Would You Mind left little doubt about her willingness to explore the more intimate corners of love and lust. The controversies often overshadowed her artistic depth, but they also reinforced her status as a key figure in music's sexual revolution. Her ability to merge vulnerability and power gave new meaning to what a pop artist could express. Marilyn Manson thrived on shock value, constructing an industrial rock persona steeped in satanic imagery, fetish wear, and theatrical performances that many found revolting or thrilling depending on their perspective. He fused themes of horror, sadomasochism, and depravity into music videos and live shows intended to confront the comfort zones of mainstream society. His stage acts, often featuring props like a pulpit and harnesses, delivered a sinister brand of erotic performance art. Tales emerged of fans and groupies participating in bizarre scenes backstage, although separating myth from reality proved difficult. Allegations of abusive behavior surfaced in later years, casting a darker shadow over the already controversial figure. Nonetheless, during the height of his fame, Manson reveled in exploring taboo sexual territory, from publicly discussing bondage and masochism to stylizing his body in ways that provoked moral panic. His aim often seemed to be a direct assault on conformity, especially regarding conservative views of sex, morality, and religion. Even with the controversies and legal troubles that followed him, he shaped an entire subculture around the intersection of the macabre and the erotic, a testament to the extremes music performance could reach. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on the wildest personalities in music history? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.